My biological brother found me on social media after decades apart, but I didn't want contact, so my adoptive sister decided to play matchmaker without permission and gave these strangers all my personal information, leading to workplace harassment and police reports before she finally realized she was being used. This whole thing started when I, 27M, got a message from someone claiming to be my biological brother, and it's turned my life upside down in ways I never expected. I was adopted when I was 6 months old by the Hendersons, Paul, 58M, and Maria, 55F. They're both teachers. Paul teaches high school history and Maria works with elementary kids. They also adopted my sister Isabella, 29F, when she was 2, and my brother Diego, 25M, when he was 4. All three of us came from different backgrounds. Isabella is from Guatemala, Diego is from Mexico, and I'm apparently from somewhere in Eastern Europe based on what little information my parents had from the adoption agency. Growing up, adoption was never treated as some big secret or tragedy in our house. My parents always made it clear that we were their kids, period. They never made us feel like we were missing anything or that we should be searching for our real families. Paul used to joke that we were like a United Nations meeting around the dinner table, and Maria would always say that love makes a family, not DNA. They celebrated our different heritages but never made us feel like we needed to go digging into our past to be complete. I look nothing like my family. I'm tall with light brown hair and green eyes, while my parents are both shorter with dark hair and brown eyes. Isabella and Diego also look completely different from me and from each other. People used to make comments when we were kids, but it never bothered me. These were my parents, this was my family, and that was that. Isabella has always been different about the adoption thing. She's been searching for her birth family since she turned 18. She's tried DNA tests, hired private investigators, joined Facebook groups for adoptees, the whole 9 yards. She's never found anything concrete, but she keeps trying. I've watched her go through cycles of hope and disappointment for years. She gets excited about a lead, spends weeks or months following it, then gets crushed when it doesn't pan out. It's become this ongoing thing that defines a lot of her life. Diego is somewhere in the middle. He's curious about his background but hasn't actively searched. He'll ask Isabella about her search sometimes and has talked about maybe doing a DNA test someday, but he's never actually done it. He seems content with knowing he's from Mexico and learning about that culture through food and music. As for me, I've never had any interest in finding biological relatives. I don't feel like there's a missing piece or some void that needs to be filled. The Hendersons raised me, they're my family, and I've never wanted or needed anything else. When people ask me about my adoption, I tell them I hit the lottery. I got amazing parents who love me unconditionally, and I got 2 great siblings. What more could I want? This all changed 3 months ago when I got a Facebook message from someone named Victor, 32M. The message said he thought he might be my biological brother and that his family had been looking for me for years. At first, I thought it was some kind of scam. I get weird messages on social media all the time, and this seemed like another one. But then Victor sent photos. There was a baby picture that looked exactly like my own baby photos, and a picture of a woman who had the same green eyes and facial structure as me. He also sent information about when and where I was born that matched what I knew from my adoption paperwork. I showed the photos to Paul and Maria, and they confirmed that the details Victor provided matched the non-identifying information they had received from the adoption agency. Once Victor realized I believed him, his whole tone changed. He started talking about organizing a big family reunion, mentioning parents and siblings and aunts and uncles by name like I already knew who they were. He said everyone was so excited to meet me and that they'd been planning this day for decades. He wanted to set up a video call with the whole family and was talking about me coming to visit them in Pennsylvania. I told Victor I needed time to think about all this. I wasn't trying to be mean, but it was overwhelming. Here was this stranger talking about people I'd never heard of like they were already part of my life. He seemed disappointed but said he understood. I talked to my family about the situation. Paul and Maria were supportive and said whatever I decided was fine with them. They made it clear that this didn't change anything about our family and that they'd support me whether I wanted to meet these people or not. Diego was also supportive. He said he could understand why I might be curious but also why I might not want to get involved. He told me to do whatever felt right for me. Isabella had a completely different reaction. She got excited in a way I'd never seen before. She started asking me dozens of questions about Victor and his family. She wanted to see all the photos and messages. When I told her I wasn't sure if I wanted to meet them, she looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Over the next few days, Isabella kept bringing up the situation. She'd ask if I'd made a decision yet, if I'd responded to Victor, if I was planning to meet them. When I told her I was leaning toward not meeting them, she got upset. She said I was wasting an incredible opportunity and that I didn't understand how lucky I was. We had several conversations about it, and Isabella kept pushing. She said she couldn't understand how I could just ignore these people who had been searching for me. She pointed out that they were my real family and that I owed it to them to at least meet them once. When I told her that Paul and Maria were my real family, she said I was being naive and that blood relationships were different. After thinking about it for 2 weeks, I decided I didn't want to pursue a relationship with Victor's family. I didn't feel any connection to these people, and I didn't want to open that door. I was happy with my life and my family, and I didn't see how adding a bunch of strangers with expectations would improve anything. I sent Victor a polite message explaining my decision. I thanked him for reaching out and said I hoped his family was doing well, but that I wasn't interested in pursuing a relationship. I tried to be respectful while being clear about my boundaries. Victor's response was not what I expected. He sent me a long, angry message calling me selfish and ungrateful. He said I was breaking his mother's heart and that I was being cruel to people who had never stopped loving me. He said they had already planned a welcome home party and that everyone was devastated by my rejection. When I didn't respond, Victor kept sending messages. Then other people started contacting me, someone claiming to be my biological father, an aunt, another brother. They all had the same tone, mixing guilt trips with anger. They said I owed them a chance, but I was being heartless, that I didn't understand what I was putting them through. I ended up blocking all of them on social media. It felt like the only way to stop the harassment. When I told my family what had happened, Isabella exploded. She said I was being selfish and that I'd thrown away something she would give anything to have. She accused me of not understanding what it was like to wonder about your origins and said I was taking my good fortune for granted. We had a huge fight where Isabella said I was being ungrateful and that I didn't deserve the opportunity I'd been given. I told her that just because she wanted something didn't mean I had to want it too. She said I was being stubborn and that I'd regret this decision for the rest of my life. Since then, Isabella has barely spoken to me. When we're at family gatherings, she's polite but cold. She doesn't include me in conversations the way she used to, and she's made several comments about people who don't appreciate what they have. Paul and Maria have tried to mediate, but Isabella won't budge. She keeps saying I made the wrong choice and that I hurt innocent people for no good reason. Diego has stayed out of it mostly, but I can tell the tension is affecting him too. The biological family hasn't given up either. They've created new social media accounts to try to contact me, and I keep having to block them. Someone even found my work email address and sent me a message there, which was really uncomfortable. I'm starting to wonder if I handled this wrong. Maybe I should have just met them once to give them closure. Maybe Isabella is right that I'm being selfish. But at the same time, I don't think I should have to have a relationship with people just because we share DNA. I didn't ask to be contacted, and I don't know these strangers anything. The worst part is that this has damaged my relationship with Isabella, and I don't know how to fix it. She's been my sister for 25 years, and now she can barely look at me because of this decision. It makes me wonder if I made the right choice. So, Ida for refusing to meet my biological family even though it's caused problems in my adoptive family? First, the harassment from Victor's family didn't stop. Even after blocking multiple accounts, they kept finding new ways to contact me. They started sending messages through LinkedIn, then through my college alumni network, and finally someone showed up at my workplace. A woman in her 50s came to the front desk of my office building and said she was my aunt and that she needed to speak with me. Security had to escort her out when she refused to leave. That incident really shook me up. I ended up having to inform my boss about the situation in case they tried to contact me at work again. It was embarrassing having to explain that I was being harassed by people claiming to be my relatives. But the bigger issue turned out to be with Isabella. About 3 weeks after my original post, she did something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I found out that Isabella had been in contact with Victor behind my back. She reached out to him on Facebook and told him that she was my sister and that she supported him trying to reconnect with me. She gave him information about our family that I never would have shared, where we lived, where I worked, details about our parents and Diego. I only discovered this because Victor mentioned Isabella by name in one of his messages to me. He said my sister understood how important family was and that she was helping him figure out how to reach me. When I confronted Isabella about it, she didn't even try to deny it. Isabella said she was trying to help both sides understand each other better. She claimed she was acting as a mediator and that she thought if Victor's family knew more about me and my life, they'd find a better way to approach the situation. She said she was trying to fix the problem that I had created. I asked her what right she had to share my personal information with strangers, and she said that Victor's family weren't strangers, they were my biological relatives and they deserved to know about me. She said I was being unreasonable by cutting them off completely and that someone needed to be the adult in the situation. When I told her that her actions had led to someone showing up at my workplace, Isabella looked surprised but not apologetic. She said she never told them where I worked, which might have been true, but the information she did provide probably made it easy for them to figure out. Paul and Maria were furious when they found out what Isabella had done. I've never seen them that angry with any of us. Maria told Isabella that she had violated my privacy and put me in danger. Paul said that Isabella's feelings about her own adoption didn't give her the right to make decisions about mine. Isabella defended herself by saying she was trying to help everyone involved. She said Victor's family were good people who just wanted to know their brother, and that I was being cruel by shutting them out. She said if I wouldn't listen to reason, then someone had to step in. The fight that followed was the worst our family has ever had. Isabella accused Paul and Maria of enabling my selfishness and said they should be encouraging me to embrace my biological heritage. She said they were being selfish too because they didn't want to share me with my real family. Paul told Isabella that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to apologize immediately. When Isabella refused, Paul said she wasn't welcome in the house until she could respect boundaries and stop interfering in my life. Isabella packed a bag and left that night. She's been staying with a friend ever since. Diego tried to play peacekeeper at first. He called Isabella and asked her to come back and apologize, but she refused. She told Diego that she couldn't be part of a family that supported my decision to abandon my biological relatives. She said she was disappointed in all of us for not understanding how important family connections were. The situation got even more awkward when Isabella missed Paul's birthday dinner last week. Paul was clearly hurt that she wasn't there, even though he tried to hide it. Maria spent most of the evening checking her phone, probably hoping Isabella would change her mind and show up. Victor's family seems to have gotten the message that their harassment wasn't working, because the messages have mostly stopped. I think the incident at my workplace might have scared them off, or maybe they realized they were making things worse for themselves. But I can't stop thinking about what Isabella did. We've been siblings for 25 years, and I thought that meant something to her. I thought she would respect my decisions even if she didn't understand them. Finding out that she was working against me behind my back feels like a betrayal that I don't know how to get past. Diego has been trying to stay neutral, but I can tell this is affecting him too. He's caught in the middle between Isabella and the rest of us, and it's putting him in an impossible position. He's asked me several times if there's anything I can do to fix the situation with Isabella, but I don't know what that would be. I'm not going to change my mind about meeting Victor's family, and Isabella seems determined to punish me for that choice. Paul and Maria have been supportive, but I can see that this is tearing them apart too. They're worried about Isabella and want her to come home, but they also won't tolerate her interfering in my life. It's created this impossible situation where everyone is hurt and no one knows how to move forward. Some people in the comments on my original post said I should just meet Victor's family once to end all the drama. But after everything that's happened, I'm even more convinced that I made the right choice. The way they handled my rejection, the harassment, the refusal to respect my boundaries, it all confirms that these aren't people I want in my life. And seeing how Isabella reacted, how she prioritized strangers over her own brother's wishes, has made me realize that her vision of family is very different from mine. She thinks blood relationships automatically deserve respect and priority, regardless of behavior or boundaries. I think family is about the people who actually care about your well-being and respect your choices. I don't know if Isabella will ever come back or if our relationship can be repaired. Right now, it doesn't seem like she's interested in apologizing or acknowledging that what she did was wrong. She seems to think she was justified in going behind my back because she disagreed with my decision. The hardest part is that this whole situation started because someone I'd never met decided they wanted a relationship with me, and now it's torn apart the family that actually raised me. That feels deeply unfair, and I'm not sure how to process it. I'm not looking for advice on how to reconcile with Isabella unless she's willing to apologize and respect my boundaries going forward. I just wanted to update everyone on how the situation has developed and let you know that sometimes standing your ground comes with a higher cost than you expect. Update 2: It's been a few months since my last update, and I thought I should let you know how things have developed. The situation with Isabella has gotten worse, and I've learned some things about my biological family that have validated my original decision to stay away from them. Isabella still hasn't come home or apologized for sharing my information with Victor. In fact, she's doubled down on her position. She's been in regular contact with Victor's family and has positioned herself as some kind of liaison between them and our family. She calls Victor her brother now and has started referring to his parents as her in-laws on social media. This came to light when Diego showed me Isabella's Facebook page. She's posted photos with Victor and his family, including pictures from what looks like family gatherings. In the captions, she talks about finally understanding what it means to have a complete family and how grateful she is to have found her real siblings. The most painful part was seeing a post where she thanked Victor's parents for welcoming her into their family and said they had shown her what unconditional love looked like. The implication that Paul and Maria hadn't given her unconditional love was devastating to our parents. When Paul saw the post, he didn't say anything, but I watched him close his laptop and go sit outside for about an hour. Maria cried, which I'd only seen her do a few times in my entire life. Diego was furious and called Isabella immediately, but she didn't answer. It gets worse. Isabella has been telling Victor's family stories about our childhood and sharing photos from our family albums. I know this because Victor sent me a message referencing specific incidents from when we were kids that only Isabella would have known about. He mentioned the time I broke my arm falling off my bike, and the vacation we took to Yellowstone when I was 12, and other personal details that made me realize Isabella has been giving them access to my entire life history. Victor's message was different from his previous ones. Instead of being angry or pleading, he was almost casual, like we were old friends catching up. He talked about how nice it was to learn about my childhood through Isabella and said he felt like he was getting to know me even though we'd never met. He mentioned that Isabella had told them I was stubborn but that they were willing to be patient and wait for me to come around. The idea that these strangers have been discussing my personality and making plans for my eventual capitulation made my skin crawl. I realized that Isabella hadn't just shared information with them, she'd been actively working to undermine my decision by making them feel like they already knew me. I blocked Victor's new account and decided I needed to have a serious conversation with Isabella. I called her and asked her to meet me for coffee so we could talk about what she'd been doing. Isabella agreed to meet, but the conversation didn't go the way I hoped. She looked different, happier and more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. She talked about Victor's family like they were the answer to all her problems. She said they understood her in ways that Paul and Maria never had and that they supported her search for identity and belonging. When I asked her to stop sharing information about me and our family, Isabella said she wasn't doing anything wrong. She said Victor's family had a right to know about their son and brother, and that my refusal to have a relationship with them didn't erase the fact that we were connected. I pointed out that I was her brother too, and that her loyalty should be to me, not to people she'd known for a few months. Isabella said blood relationships were different and more important than adoptive ones. She said she'd finally found her real family through Victor's parents, and that they'd helped her understand that adoption was just a temporary arrangement until people could find their biological relatives. This was hard to hear, but it explained a lot about Isabella's behavior. She's always struggled with being adopted, but I didn't realize how much she resented Paul and Maria for not being her biological parents. Meeting Victor's family seems to have validated all her worst feelings about adoption and given her permission to act on them. When I told Isabella that her behavior was hurting Paul and Maria, she said they would get over it. She said all parents eventually had to accept that their children would leave them for their real families, and that this was just happening sooner than they expected. I asked Isabella if she understood that her actions had consequences beyond just her own feelings. I pointed out that her relationship with Victor's family was built on violating my privacy and ignoring my clearly stated boundaries. Isabella said my boundaries were unreasonable and that family relationships weren't something you could opt out of. The conversation ended badly. Isabella said she wasn't going to stop building relationships with Victor's family, and that she wasn't going to apologize for helping them understand their son. She said if I wanted to rebuild our relationship, I needed to accept that Victor's family was now part of her life and that meant they were indirectly part of mine too. Since that conversation, things at home have been tense. Paul and Maria are grieving the loss of their relationship with Isabella while also dealing with her ongoing betrayal. Diego is angry at Isabella but also sad about losing his sister. Everyone is trying to pretend that life is normal, but there's this constant undercurrent of loss and disappointment. Victor's family has mostly stopped contacting me directly, but I know they're getting regular updates about my life through Isabella. It feels like I'm being watched and discussed by people I've never met, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. The worst part is that Isabella seems genuinely happy with her new arrangement. She's found a biological family connection she always wanted, even if it's not with her own relatives. Victor's parents treat her like a daughter, and she's getting the validation she's been searching for her entire life. I can't help but think that if Isabella had found her own biological family instead of latching onto mine, none of this would have happened. But she's transferred all her adoption-related pain and longing onto my situation, and she seems to think that by forcing a relationship between me and Victor's family, she can somehow heal her own wounds. Paul and Maria have started seeing a counselor to help them process what's happened with Isabella. They're trying to understand where they went wrong and whether there was something they could have done differently to prevent this situation. I've told them repeatedly that Isabella's choices aren't their fault, but they're struggling with guilt and self-doubt. They keep asking if they should have handled her adoption search differently or if they should have been more supportive of her efforts to find her biological family. Diego and I have gotten closer through all of this. We've had long conversations about adoption and family and what it means to choose your relationships. Diego says he's grateful that Isabella's behavior has shown him how solid his own feelings are about our family. He says he's never questioned whether Paul and Maria were his real parents, and watching Isabella reject them has made him appreciate them even more. I don't know if Isabella will ever come back or if our family can heal from this rift. Right now, it seems like she's made her choice and she's committed to it. She's chosen Victor's family over ours, and she's chosen her vision of what family should be over the reality of what we actually had together. The irony is that in searching for her real family, Isabella has abandoned the family that actually raised her and loved her unconditionally. She's traded 27 years of genuine relationships for a few months of what might be fantasy connections with people who barely know her. I still believe I made the right choice in refusing to meet Victor's family. Everything that's happened since has confirmed that they don't respect boundaries and that they have an unhealthy understanding of what family relationships should look like. The fact that they've welcomed Isabella so quickly and encouraged her to betray her adoptive family tells me everything I need to know about their values. Isabella's relationship with Victor's family didn't last. About 2 months after my last update, she called Paul and Maria in tears, asking if she could come home. It turns out that Victor's parents had been using her to get information about me, and once they realized I wasn't going to change my mind about meeting them, their interest in Isabella disappeared. The details are pretty harsh. Isabella had been spending most weekends with Victor's family, attending their gatherings and holidays like she was a real member of their family. She'd been posting constantly on social media about her new relationships and how happy she was to finally understand what real family meant. But apparently, Victor's parents had been asking her detailed questions about my job, my routine, my friends, and even my financial situation. They wanted to know everything they could about my life, supposedly so they could find the right approach to reconnect with me. Isabella thought she was helping facilitate an eventual reunion, but they were actually gathering information for reasons that became clear later. Victor's father showed up at my apartment building one evening in November. He waited in the lobby until I came home from work, then approached me and said he needed to talk to me about family obligations and responsibility. When I told him I wasn't interested and tried to walk away, he grabbed my arm and said I couldn't keep running from who I really was. I had to call building security to remove him. The whole incident was caught on the lobby cameras, and I ended up filing a police report for harassment. Victor's father was given a warning and told to stay away from me and my workplace. After that incident, I realized that Victor's family had been planning some kind of confrontation or forced meeting, and they'd been using Isabella to gather intelligence about my life. They weren't interested in respecting my boundaries or building a genuine relationship. They wanted to corner me and force me into compliance. When Isabella found out about the incident at my apartment, she was horrified. She called Victor to ask why his father had confronted me, and Victor told her that they'd decided I needed a more direct approach since being polite hadn't worked. He said Isabella had given them enough information to know that I was just being stubborn and that I'd come around once I realized how much they cared about me. Isabella realized that everything she'd shared with them had been used to help them harass me. She told Victor that this wasn't what she'd wanted and that his family had crossed a line. Victor told Isabella that she needed to choose between supporting their efforts to build a relationship with me or being cut off from their family entirely. When Isabella said she couldn't support harassment, Victor's parents immediately stopped including her in family events. They stopped answering her calls and removed her from their social media. Within a week, she went from being treated like a beloved family member to being completely ignored. The rejection devastated Isabella. She'd spent months building what she thought were genuine relationships with these people, only to discover that their interest in her was entirely conditional on her usefulness in reaching me. When she was no longer willing to help them violate my boundaries, they discarded her without a second thought. Isabella came home right before Thanksgiving and apologized to all of us. She apologized to me for sharing my information and for prioritizing strangers over her actual family. She apologized to Paul and Maria for the things she'd said about adoption and for rejecting their love and support. She apologized to Diego for putting him in the middle of family conflict. The apology was genuine, but the damage was significant. Isabella had spent months telling us that we weren't her real family and that biological relationships were more important than the ones we'd built together. She'd shared intimate details of our family life with people who used that information to harass me. She'd chosen to prioritize her relationship with Victor's family over her relationships with us. Paul and Maria were gracious about accepting Isabella's apology, but things haven't gone back to normal. There's a cautiousness in how they interact with Isabella now, like they're not sure if she might reject them again if another opportunity for biological family connection comes up. They love her, but they don't trust her judgment about family relationships anymore. Diego has been more direct about his feelings. He told Isabella that watching her throw away 27 years of family relationships for a few months with strangers had been heartbreaking and that he didn't understand how she could have been so careless with people who loved her unconditionally. As for me, I've forgiven Isabella, but our relationship is different now. I understand that her adoption experience has been painful in ways that mine wasn't, but I can't forget that she chose to betray my trust and violate my privacy when I most needed her support. She put me in danger because she disagreed with my choices about my own life. Victor's family finally stopped trying to contact me after the police report. I think they realized that their behavior had crossed legal boundaries and that continuing to harass me could result in restraining orders or other legal consequences. Looking back on this whole experience, I'm more convinced than ever that I made the right choice in refusing to meet Victor's family. Everything they did after my initial rejection showed that they don't understand or respect boundaries, that they view family relationships as obligations rather than choices, and that they're willing to use manipulation and harassment to get what they want. The people who raised me taught me that family is about love, respect, and support. Victor's family showed me that they believe family is about possession, control, and entitlement. I don't want relationships with people who think I owe them access to my life simply because we share DNA. Isabella's experience with them confirmed my instincts. They were willing to manipulate her longing for biological family connection and use her as a tool to get to me. When she was no longer useful to them, they discarded her without caring about the emotional damage they caused. Our family is healing, but we're all changed by what happened. Isabella is working to rebuild trust and prove that she's committed to the family that raised her. Paul and Maria are learning to accept that their love wasn't enough to prevent Isabella from seeking validation elsewhere. Diego and I have grown closer through supporting each other during the worst of the conflict. I still get occasional friend requests from people with Victor's last name, but I block them immediately. I've made peace with the fact that there are people out there who will always see me as someone who owes them a relationship, but I don't owe anyone access to my life or my family. The most important thing I learned from this experience is that choosing your family isn't selfish, it's necessary. Just because someone wants a relationship with you doesn't mean you have to provide one. Just because you share DNA with someone doesn't mean you share values or priorities. And just because someone calls themselves your family doesn't mean they'll treat you with the love and respect that real family relationships require. Paul and Maria gave me everything I needed to build a happy, successful life. They taught me about love, respect, boundaries, and the importance of treating people well. Victor's family offered me nothing but demands, manipulation, and harassment. The choice between them was easy, even when it came with costs I didn't expect. I hope Isabella has learned something from this experience about the difference between the family you're born to and the family you choose. She got a harsh lesson in how conditional some relationships can be, but maybe that will help her appreciate the unconditional love she's always had from the people who actually raised her. This whole situation started because someone I'd never met decided they wanted a relationship with me. It nearly destroyed the family that actually mattered to me. But in the end, the people who really loved me proved they were worth fighting for, and the people who only wanted to use me showed their true colors. I'm grateful I learned the difference.